Okay, so what we're gonna do is look at what comes in our Debadge clay bar kit. So these are the components. I went ahead and unbagged them already. You're gonna get a little bit of a lubricant product. We're gonna get some fishing line here, a couple wooden dowels, a plastic razor blade, and a little bit of clay bar, which you can see I've already removed from its packaging. Depending on how hot it is outside, sometimes this can kind of be a pain in the butt to remove, but make sure you get all the little plastic bits out of here. You don't want to kind of scratch the car in any way using that. Now, one of the key things about this kit is you don't have to use everything in it for doing a Debadge. We've just given you all the components in case you encounter some different things. On this car in particularly, you can see we're gonna go ahead and remove the Dodge from the back here because we're gonna do a 3-layer decal, and the dealership put this horrible, horrible chrome plate right in the middle of the bumper. Terrible decision. I don't know who passed that, but that'll be the first thing that we're gonna remove, and for that job, I believe I'm going to use the fishing line here. I don't know if I'm gonna put it around the wooden dowels because I don't think it's gonna provide that much resistance. I should be fine. If it starts to hurt my fingers, I will do that. But I'm gonna go ahead and put some spray back there. This is what would be, this is actually the same thing that's in this bottle. Just a little more easy for me to spray. You can see I wrap this around 2 fingers, and all I'm gonna do is use this to chop that double-sided tape that's holding this badge on. Now, it does appear that they have put quite a thick piece of double-sided tape back there, and it's not the most pleasant thing. So we will utilize these little dowels here and see if they won't help us. Let's see. So I guess I could use it, right? And there we go. Release that from the car. Still not the most comfortable thing ever. Ow. But now what we're gonna do, because I put that moisture back there in case there was any dirt or anything, I wanted to help it slide across the car so we didn't do anything, scratch anything here. So if we look, this is pretty good. We only have a little bit of adhesive to remove. Pick up the decal, yeah, just as we suspected, one huge sheet of double-sided adhesive. So now when removing this adhesive, we have a couple things that we can try. First thing, and the least aggressive, is this plastic razor blade. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put down a little bit more lubricant on the car here and take it at about a 30-degree angle and chop into that adhesive from a couple different directions. See if that removes it. You can hear actually that it's sliding a lot smoother with less resistance after that. So yeah, we have gotten a lot of the adhesive off. All we have is this tiny little bit here. Just gonna come at it, and now I may just use the friction from the towel to be able to wipe it away. There we go. So there are tiny scratches right here and here from when the decal was placed or from some contaminants. We'll take a polisher later and remove that, but at this point, there's no more adhesive. This is smooth to the touch, and this is debadged. Let's move on to the Dodge letters here. These are gonna be very, very easy, as you can imagine. Just put down some lubricant for the same reason, just to help any dirt or any contaminants slide around. Take the fishing line and just pop these off one by one. Now, if you didn't get a Debadge kit, you can actually do this with a squeegee too. So, don't think you have to use this method. It's just a little cleaner. Sometimes it doesn't leave that, but I will show you with the D using the plastic razor blade. I can probably also slide that right underneath and pull that letter right off. So actually that left almost no adhesive. This one left none, this one left none. And we've got a couple patches here to deal with. But again, just taking the double-sided razor blade, or taking the razor blade and just kind of cutting, using a little chopping motion here. All that comes off. Now we can wipe this surface clean, see if we have anything to deal with. So we don't. We are good. There's no adhesive here. You can see I didn't even have to use the clay bar. So sometimes you think you got this kit and you need to use every single component in it in a step. Sometimes you don't. In this case, we just have a little clay bar now in case we do need it in the future. But you would want to go ahead and take this, wrap it up in a piece of wax paper or in a little bag and store it somewhere where it doesn't get very hot and you don't want it melting. But there you go. That is a complete debadge of Dodge Challenger. All right, so now we're gonna tint the rear reflector here on this car. Super simple process. One of the easiest kits we have to install for sure. One thing you want to look for when you're installing this though is contaminants around the edge of this side marker, especially around the bottom. I would advise against soaking this, spraying it, even with a Luxe spray, unless you're going to give it time afterwards to dry out, because this is very close to the plastic behind it and it will typically gather liquid around this edge, and even when you think you're all done, you get to just locking these final edges and they keep pulling back, you don't realize why, and then you feel a little moisture. So what I'm going to do is just wrap my squeegee or my towel around a squeegee so that I have a corner here, wet my corner, and take that right around. And so this is the same spray that's in our Luxe Prep. It's just alcohol water. So it's going to dissolve or evaporate very quickly. You can see, even though I've done this before on this car and in preparation for this video, I still got more contaminants out of there. Take another corner that's dry, wrap it back around, and just go around one more time to make sure we don't have any residual moisture, which we don't. A regular squeegee, the one we include in our Luxe kit, is going to be perfect for installing these. If you want to get a little extra and have a very easy time, you buy one of our micro wrap kit sticks here. I'm going to use the red one on this, but you can see the side marker is cut exactly to shape, so it'll lay right in position here. All we have to do is start taking off the backing paper. You can do this a couple different ways. Sometimes I'll fold it here just so I can align this piece perfectly and get it stuck down onto the car. Then just fold it the rest of the way off, pull off the rest of the backing, and get the overlay completely installed on the car. And now I'm actually putting down a little pressure. You can feel the writing right there on the light going up around, making sure that it's nice and applied. I don't have any bubbles on the face. I don't, so we know we're solid there. Don't need my knife now. I'm gonna go ahead and get most of this done with a squeegee. I do take a little heat because this vinyl is meant to wrap around the edges and give you a nice complete look. And I just want to soften it a little bit before I start pressing down. One reason is this 3D Honeycomb is a laminated product. And so just want to soften it just a little to make sure that it is happy about folding over like that. See, I just kind of chop into the light. This is a very flexible squeegee as well, just like the ones we give you in the kit. So I'm just using that flexibility and kind of pushing it into that curve and locking that vinyl down. Now honestly, that's done. There's really no need to even take the wrap stick in this application. However, if you want to get very sure that the vinyl is down, you can see I can take this stick and run it all along the edge here. And now I'm very certain that all edges and corners are locked down on that light. And that's all there is to it. All right, so now it's time to put on the 3-layer decal here between the Challenger taillights. I've went ahead and prepared the decal as it would come to you in the package. All these would be one piece, but you can see I went ahead and trimmed them out. Makes a lot of sense where to trim. You can see this is the bottom layer, the first layer that we're gonna put on. I've trimmed it out to where we have all of the excess transfer paper here included with the decal. So I cut on this side. That extra transfer paper is what's going to line up with the bottom plastic here. See, if I push this right to that bottom plastic, this decal now lines up perfectly with this taillight, and that is to mark the center of the decal. So try to trim as close as possible to this black outer edge. You can see on this one there was a little bit of a gap. This is not as good as this, because this transfer paper butts up perfectly and there's a small gap here. That's okay, we can account for that when we do the installation. I can slide the decal around, especially now that I know what I'm supposed to be seeing here. And look, you can see that's now on the plastic, this corner's on the plastic, this one is on the plastic, and so is this down here. I'm pretty happy with the location of this decal. So I'm gonna go ahead and we'll register it in just a second. Let's show you how to trim out the other 2 layers. This is the second layer. On this one, you can see I actually trimmed close to the vinyl and away from the extra here. So a lot of times we get told this piece came in my package and it's too big, it doesn't fit, it's too big on the top and bottom. Well, it's designed that way for a reason. If we let this sit here on the taillights, now using this rectangle to key off of the reverse light, you can see when I hold this up on the trunk, my 3-layer decal has a really nice swoop, and then yeah, there's extra material that's in this gap, both top and bottom. That's there so that once I have the face applied, I can fold that vinyl around top and bottom and get a perfect look. So you don't have a gloss black edge that's visible at the top, and then it just looks like you slapped something on. That's the problem with those plastic cutouts too. It just looks like you slapped on a big old piece of plastic. Doesn't quite fit the car. This, in my opinion, is one of the better looks and how we get that. Then our top layer, which will register with our bottom layer. You can see we offer custom text options. With this is how it would have come, and I trim around, again, as close to the edge of the excess as possible. That leaves me this. So after we put the first and second layer decals on the car, what's going to happen is this transfer paper is going to perfectly line up with where this flag is cut away so that this Luxe is embossed in the flag. So we're going to use that extra transfer paper to line up when we get to that step. So now that I've explained all that, I'm going to get organized, and then as soon as we do, we're going to start this installation process. All right, so we're going to attempt to put this 3-layer decal on this car. Car's up on race ramps, so this is right in front of my face. I'm usually used to having it down at my shoulder height. This is going to be quite interesting. Should make it a little bit easier and hope it films a little better for you guys. So with our bottom layer, this is going to be an Oracal decal product. This is a wet apply vinyl. It doesn't have air release channels because it's not meant to fold around anything. It's a really flat surface that we're going to apply it to. Now, you don't have to apply it wet. You can do it dry. I am right now, because we're filming this video. Because we're filming the video, I don't have time to let the moisture evaporate out from under the bottom of this decal. And you know, when we see problems of this installation, most of the time it's because there was not enough time left for the moisture to evaporate under this layer. What happens is you put the second layer on, you've trapped all that moisture underneath it, and then you end up with little bubbles all along the side of the bottom layer, under the satin layer. Doesn't look so good. Sometimes it can be fixed, most of the time it can't. So I'm going to be very precise and try to install this dry, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. It's a pretty small decal, so I think we're going to be successful in trying this. I'm going to use one of our Luxe Premium 30-degree blade knives for this process. I'm going to pull it out, and because I'm going to be cutting right here, I'm going to snap a fresh blade. With this knife, you just remove the back, snap it, you remove the blade, put this right back, and now you have a fresh cutting surface. Don't forget, have a sharps container or something to discard that blade. You don't want it in your tire or your leg or anywhere else. So now that we have that, I'm going to cut this painter's tape, and it's going to leave me yellow here and here to help us align this. I'm not going to cut on the black plastic of the car because I don't want to leave any mark. I'm cutting right over the transfer paper, and you don't even have to put any pressure down when you break a fresh blade. It's so sharp. That's all we have to do. So I'm going to do that. Same thing over here. Pull that right out from under, and as you can see, there's still a little white here, so I didn't cut on the black of the car, I cut on the paper, but that is going to help us register this decal. Now that we've done that, it's time for our final wipe, final clean. So we're going to take our microfiber cloth, which you have included in the kit, and the Luxe Prep Spray, which is just alcohol and water. I've got it here in a larger spray bottle. This time I don't mind if I actually soak this pretty good. I'm going to give that a nice wipe, make sure we don't have any dust or anything else on there. Try not to pull up my little tape markers right here. And then it's going to be important to take this vinyl, because it's been in the mail and it's traveled all the way to you, we want to lock this transfer paper back down onto this bottom vinyl layer so we don't have any trouble pulling it off. It really helps if you have a table or a work surface next to you. You can do this on the trunk of the car, but who really wants to do that? So if you have to do this process, in the kitchen table just have two setups, one inside the garage, one inside the kitchen, where you have a nice and clean area and you can walk back and forth between the two without hitting somebody or something with a decal that's adhesive side out. Now I'm going to flip the decal over and start rolling the transfer paper back. It's a pretty good technique, and it's going to help any of those little thin pieces not want to stick. Look, I had a little piece stick on the backing paper here, not a problem. I'm just going to fold it right back down, really press on it with my finger. Start rolling back again. If it still wants to come up, I'm going to push down really hard and make that rollover point very, very tight. And see, now the vinyl stayed down on the transfer paper. That's all design dependent too, because those little shards are going to be there based off of the design. Our designers try to minimize them. There we are. So now we freed the decal. You can see I can touch anywhere there's transfer paper. I try not to touch where the decal actually sits. And now we're going to go. I'm going to move this table out of my way just a little bit so I can get centered on this. And just try to not put a lot of force down and see how I can get this decal keyed and positioned correctly. So again, you can see I'm actually touching where the transfer paper is. I haven't put any pressure down on any of the vinyl yet, because it's already going to stick the moment it touches. But I can still work with it and pull it off if need be. Main thing here is going to be get this other side straight. Bam, I've got it. I'm going to take my squeegee and I'm going to work a hinge right in the center. See how I did that? Now work this down. Just like that. Don't forget that little piece down there. And notice I was very precise in the direction that I squeegeed. I started right in the middle and made myself a hinge, and then every stroke you saw went away from that hinge because I was working the air out. This is not air release vinyl, so you need to be very precise in that, or you're going to end up with bubbles in that bottom layer. If you do get some bubbles in the bottom layer, you can take the knife, which has a very sharp tip right now, prick them, and then just kind of apply a little heat and try to work that out. And then if you are more concerned with bubbles and you want extra time to work this piece, apply it wet. Just know that when you get to this stage, that what you're going to want to do is take your application fluid. I'll even go ahead and do it right here. And we'll just soak the paper with the application fluid that's included. That's going to soften the paper and soften the glue that's on the transfer paper and help it release the vinyl, and the vinyl will stay on the car. If you have trouble pulling this paper off and the vinyl is coming with it, then you just need to sit back, let the car sit, and wait. It's just that there's more moisture behind the vinyl and the plastic, and you've got to let that adhesive set up before you can pull the transfer paper. Now, because this was a dry install, I don't have that problem. So I can pull this right off, assess the install here. Very cool. I'm very happy so far. Look, we have no bubbles. It can be installed dry, bubble free. Just takes a little bit of time and just being precise. But if you are, you can get a perfect installation on the bottom layer, bubble free. And see, now I can dab and get any moisture that remains off. If you did have any bubbles, again, what we're going to do, take the knife and just barely press it into the surface of the vinyl, apply a little bit of heat, and work that out. If you see bubbles underneath there and you did it the wet method, then you might just need to sit back and wait and let the moisture evaporate out. But if you did it, if you installed this bottom layer using the wet method, I would sit back, just for my comfort level, I'd sit back 30 minutes before I went and installed the top layer. If it's cold outside, I might wait even longer. But because we did it this way and we don't have any moisture to deal with, we're going straight to the next step. Next step is the satin divider overlay for this piece. You can see, again, most people say it's too big, it's oversized. Not the case. We want it to cover that bottom. With this one, there's no need to put any yellow tape or anything. This is an air release vinyl, so it's much more forgiving. With that, I'm just there. I'm lining up with I'm using my eyes to line up that rectangle with that button. And then I'm just looking now at the top right-hand corner, my right thumb. I want this right there to be lined up right where the light turns. Using that, I can now kind of fulcrum and pivot this decal to where this corner lines up. See, okay, it's air release. I wanted to pick it up there and reposition it just a little bit. Done. Now I'll go ahead and draw this top line. Perfect. Very, very easy. Pull this off. Look, it's now attached to the car. Work it down. Check that out. Now it's very clear where that extra vinyl is. Right along the bottom, in a perfect line, and right along the top. We push in here, you can see that. Now we want to work this embossing down, but the transfer paper is going to kind of fight us there. So my main goal now is to put as much pressure on this as I possibly can with the transfer paper in place, then I'm going to pull it off. It's not very hot in our shop right now, and you don't want to do this step where you pull the transfer paper off on an extremely hot day or if the sun is hitting the car, because you haven't put as much pressure right here next to the stripe as you have right here. So where that embossing is occurring, you can actually pull this transfer paper up and then stretch that vinyl right there and leave you with a little bubble, and that's no fun. But because we have this little square we don't need, I can kind of use that to tear the transfer paper. See? I'm doing it very slowly because I don't want to tear the satin vinyl behind it. It shouldn't, but better to go slow and watch. And see, I just kind of pull it over to one side because I don't want to pull down on that corner. I want to tear this and go up into that corner. So now you can see that the vinyl is not quite applied right there at that edge. If I take my finger, I can rub it right there and make that edge so much more sharp. We're going to have to come back as soon as this transfer paper is off and tighten all those edges down. So here, be careful because it's wanting to turn directions. There we go. Folding the transfer paper over at a very sharp angle is very good instead of pulling like this because the vinyl doesn't want to follow it. See these top and bottom edges versus when I do this, see how they fold out? We don't want that. We're gonna go a sharp angle, push over. Very happy with that. This part will be a little easier with a wrap glove. We do have those available on our website as well. This one is America. You can also do this with just a microfiber wrapped around your finger if you don't have a wrap glove, and you don't even have to use that if you don't want to. This just helps my hands slide on the vinyl a lot easier. So what I'm gonna do is heat the vinyl a little bit and start sharpening up those embossings. Have the heat gun held back quite a bit. You can really see the difference in the stars. Now with the stars, we might start trapping a little bit of air. I'll show you how to deal with that. Right now is good. I'm applying heat. You see these bubbles forming around the stars? That's what it looks like when you have moisture under the bottom layer, except you don't need heat to expand the air to make that happen. It's gonna be moisture. So if you see that and you're not using heat, you've got moisture underneath the second layer. Best bet, I'll show you how to help evacuate that if possible. Get as much as I can. These little star shapes are always a pain. And when they are, what we're going to want to do is just take our knife, and in each little leg of the star, we're just going to put one little escape for the air to get to. Then you kind of have to work it around the shape of the star to get it to that shape. If you need to, put another hole in another point of the star. But you can see that really sharpens it up. You can use the same technique. If you have moisture under there, put a little hole in the vinyl and just try to, then you can actually use a little heat to try to heat the fluid up and help move it out. But hole in the vinyl and time is really the only thing that could potentially help that situation. If it doesn't, it will need to be replaced and redone. Oh, we got one more right here. Okay, the Honeycomb's a little more forgiving since you don't have the shapes aren't locked in on every side, and you can work air all the way around the decal. Now look, all we have to do now to finish this satin layer, I use my finger, press into this gap. Now that didn't fully apply the vinyl, but it at least started it around that curve. Do the same thing at the bottom, cleans that up perfectly. Now take my squeegee, and with chop motions, and then maybe motion like that. Yep, get it to lock down at the top. So what looked to be too big now gives us perfect coverage all the way to the back, so we don't have a sharp glossy edge. So that they're not too big, they're made just right, and they're made for that exact purpose. So you can see this curve just ends perfect right here. We see some of these installed where that doesn't happen. The curve ends down here and then you see it curve up. Well, that up part is meant to be in the gap. So if you have it like this, you've done a great job and you're ready for the next step. Next step is the third layer. This is also Oracal. It's meant to be installed wet. Do we have to? Not really, especially with it being so small and so simple. We're gonna do the same thing we did before, switch over to our table work surface, help lock the vinyl down. I'm gonna take this glove off, so I'm not gonna need it. And I don't wanna get any lint behind this vinyl. So use the decal vinyl for small stuff like this and not the wrap vinyl, because you have all these little sharp corners and we want to avoid you picking the decal up whenever you wipe on the car. This vinyl just is a lot thinner. The adhesive is a lot more aggressive than wrap vinyl, and I think it kind of protects, it gives you another barrier. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, use this paper to line up this layer. I'm looking for the simplest place to start, and I see it right here in this X and this E. If I get the X and the E position correct, I know I can, the L and the U will fall into place. So I'm gonna use that top at the X, right here also. Bam, my E is in place. Look, that falls right in the embossing. That falls in the embossing. That falls right there. So now all we have to do is help this lay down. Bam, U is in place, L is in place. Roll over this with your thumb. Not too much needed since this is a decal vinyl and we just installed it dry. Come back and remove this transfer paper. And there you go. It's completed 3-layer decal. You will see a little mark right here in the middle. That's the casting mark in the plastic straight from Dodge. So that's not a default in your car. It's not a defect in our vinyl. It's just there. There's one here, there's one here, and there's one here. No one will notice them, but you'll probably notice them for the first time when installing this decal because you've never been this close to the car. But they are there. They're on all the cars. Don't worry about them. They're here. It's really odd. There you go. On to the next step. Okay guys, so I went ahead and I trimmed the taillight divider decal made out of the Luxe 3D Honeycomb. This is the large Honeycomb here. Let's see, so we're gonna install it. Super easy, air release, not much to this. You can see I went ahead and trimmed the decal out. Some people say that our decals are too large. They don't actually fit, and that's because there's extra material that's gonna fit in that gap. So my objective here is to look at this top corner. I'm using that center rectangle to line up with the trunk release button. And the other objective is to look right there and make sure that that curve flows really nice and all that excess vinyl is up in the gap of the car. All I do there is kind of pull just a little bit with my left hand and tack this corner in place and then draw a line across the top. Once I know I have that line across the top set, I know I'm pretty much tension free. Vinyl is ready to be laid down completely. Switch over to the squeegee. Just help it onto the car. You can see I made a little bit of a crease there, probably not the best motion on the squeegee. So I just lift off. It's not hot in here. I don't want it to be because I don't want to stretch that material. I'm gonna just work that down, work that out. See, a lot of times I kind of chop towards the right or left. I'm gonna go straight down. There really isn't any stretch or tension on this vinyl, so this should be a very simple product to put down. There we go, pull that off just a little, flatten that out. And to get that, that's why we put the transfer paper over the decal. A lot of people aren't gonna do that have copied our product and now sell this. They don't do that because you don't necessarily have to have it. It's just an extra step. But if you have to pull this back off and reposition, it helps keep that decal in its exact shape, and it keeps it from stretching out and giving you any weird deformations. So we take that extra step, we apply the transfer paper for you, just to help you get that professional result. Again, like I did before on the other layer of decal, I use this key to kind of start tearing the transfer paper. I use my other finger to hold the vinyl since there is that flap of extra vinyl right now. Pull at a very sharp angle with that over itself. Down. Now see, because I'm gonna have to pull this transfer paper off this way and that's a little edge, I'm gonna hold it down with my finger and now work this all the way off. Now we can clearly see that excess vinyl that people think is incorrect or is too much, and I'll show you what we do with that. You can see I can draw that, use my finger here, and adhere the vinyl right to that corner. Same thing at the bottom. I'm gonna adhere it to that corner at the bottom. See, I didn't fully apply it yet. I like to help it get itself around the corner, and then in maybe 2 or 3 passes, change my angle, and now it's applied flat to the light. So at first I was pushing this way, then I was pushing that way, third I was pushing straight up, and in 3 passes I've now locked that edge. I'm gonna do the same thing here, push my finger further in, you can see the vinyl folding even more, and help it around. And then I can't get my finger totally in there, so we're gonna switch to the squeegee for the last stroke, go straight in the middle, and out to the sides. So now that excess vinyl has folded back into the gap and gives us a very, very nice complete look. Instead of just having a flat screwed on piece of plastic or stuck on piece of plastic, I don't think there's anything worse looking than that. This looks almost OEM, and this 3D honeycomb shape looks absolutely crazy on the back of this Challenger. Next step, we're gonna do the taillight tint kit in the same honeycomb, and I cannot wait to reveal what this is gonna look like. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is install our classic Type 1 Challenger taillight tint kit in the Luxe 3D Honeycomb Mid-Smoke Silver, large. A lot of adjectives for this, but you know, a lot of adjectives makes things better. I always thought that back with the Nissan GTR Nurse Spec 2 V-Spec, all that craziness. This is similar. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and just pull off the backing paper completely. You don't wanna stretch this out its exact shape for what you need here. If it's really hot, you definitely want to be careful stretching it out. You don't want the sun hitting you while you do this, because we're going to have to work it around this little convex shape or concave shape. I'm just going to kind of lean down. It's all about the position of the body. Make sure that you have a good angle on it and you can see. And because this is the most complex curved area, I'm probably going to tackle that last. And the first thing I want to do is just lock the decal down right in the center. I'm gonna use my finger and just kind of work this slowly and watch it and see what it's telling me. See, I have a couple little fingers forming right there, but you can work those out, no problem. And now try to get it down into that corner and up here into this one. Okay, perfect, we got it with no wrinkles, no anything. Now, just work that out. You see, I kind of use a fanning motion. There's always a purpose to the direction that I'm squeegeeing or I'm pushing. I'm always thinking about where I want the air to go and what direction, how it's gonna get there, and I don't wanna lock myself in with a little bubble. So, that first piece is on, super easy. Now I'm just gonna heat up this gun here so I can lock it around the edge. And use a squeegee. Push that down. I will pop the trunk and lock this piece on the edge, but I'm gonna go ahead and install the second piece here first, so I only have to pop the truck once. Come back over here, iron out any little wrinkles that may have remained. They're all gone. So our first piece is down. Go on with the second piece, same thing, kind of just look at it, make sure I know what I'm gonna do. I have a plan in place. Cool, I like this. I'm gonna start down here. This is gonna be the first place I try to tack, get the center and get this bottom part lined up. All right. Again, just kind of move into position so you can see everything really well. So even though I'm using my right thumb to press the decal down in the middle of the taillight valley, I'm looking at that bottom right-hand corner. That's what I'm lining up, just like I said. So I've lined that up. I'm gonna push up to the top, confirm that it's in the right position. And now, just like we did before, push right in the deepest part of the valley. And go from the center out, kind of in these motions that are kind of following the shape of the outside line. You can see this is going to be the most complex part right here. We have this little wrinkle. So before I get too far, I'm going to pull that up. Hold it off the car. And we're going to go for a little bit of heat. We're not trying to put much stretch on it. We're just trying to soften the vinyl just a little bit. Bam, to get it to work really nicely into that corner and not give us any weird tension in your fingers. Look at that, laid down perfectly smooth. So there we go. Both pieces are installed. Again, kind of take that. Now we're gonna go ahead and pop the trunk. Heat right here, and just lock that little bit of vinyl around the lens. Same thing on this part of the car. Nothing to it. Just making sure that there's a little bit of heat and that the vinyl's sitting nice and happy on the back side of that lens. Take my squeegee, confirm that it is, and there we go. We now have the tail light tinted on the driver's side and the center marker. Let's see what she looks like. There you go. There's the blinker through the tint. You get a nice honeycomb look inside of the racetrack tail lamp. Adds another dimensionality to the Challenger taillights. We're very, very happy with the way that came out. That's sick.
We're good to go.
All right. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the front side marker of this Dodge Challenger. This is a wide body model. So as you watch me do this, no, this is specific to the wide body model. The rear side markers on this car are the same as a standard car. So if you have a narrow body Challenger, all you're going to do is follow the same instructions for the rear set of markers ×4. If you have this car, you do the rear ×2, and you're going to do this technique ×2. I'm going to show you how to make this lay down where we have no bubbles that appear right here in the future. A really nice looking kit. The Challenger side markers are very, very similar in shape. Even though these pop out, you'd be surprised to know that they're all just straight rectangles. So if you see I'm holding these pieces here, there really isn't that much difference in the link. So the first thing you're going to want to do with the Challenger side markers is identify which piece here goes on this light. So I'm going to go ahead and just try the first piece in my hand. Okay, I like the fact that this looks like this is the back. Okay, come forward. Look, okay, we grabbed the right piece. You can see it lines up here at the front, lines up at the back. That's good. I'm just going to take another piece here. Let's see. Okay. So very similar, but look, this overhangs over the rear maybe 1/8 of an inch. That 1/8 of an inch, if you were to put this piece right here, you'd have a successful install. You'd just trim that edge off, but then when you got to the rear, you'd be 1/8 of an inch too short. So you want to make sure that you choose the right piece. And they look really similar. We used to label the pieces, however, we weren't able to cut through around on the exact shape, and it's much more handy to have this exact shape because you can hold it up to the car and figure out what piece is what, and then use that exact shape when you're doing the installation to help you. So we're gonna go ahead and start this install now. First thing I'm gonna do is clean the side marker off. We have done this already, but the car's been sitting and I don't want any dust, fingerprints. So I'm gonna use a little bit of the Luxe Prep Spray on a microfiber. Notice I didn't spray it on the light. That's because I don't want there to be any moisture in the gaps. That could hurt us, especially with this bend right here. I take the microfiber, wrap it around the squeegee, and go all the way around the perimeter of the light. See that black spot? That's fresh. That came off that. That's what we want to see. So now, which one of the ones of these? See, I sat the piece down, and now I have to go back and make sure I got the right one again. Okay, this is the right piece. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start here on this front tip. We're gonna work it into the crease and then this face here. You don't wanna try to do it like this and then push it in. It's not gonna work for you. You'll notice because I don't want to stretch this vinyl out, I'm gonna fold back the backing paper just by a couple of inches and crease it. See, that's the advantage of having the backing paper and the decal cut exactly to shape, is you get to use this as a tool, whereas we wouldn't have that freedom before. So we line up that little part, make sure that it's, I'm gonna pull up a little. I'm using my right thumb to line this gap up to make sure that the decal is on straight. It is, so now I just kind of roll that in place. We can free the rest of the backing paper here. And this is pretty easy. Now we're just gonna roll the vinyl, use the hard part of the squeegee, and push it right into that crease. Notice I didn't have it bridging. I'm gonna pull it off and I'm gonna bridge it. I could stretch this in there, but I don't wanna do that. First off, the honeycomb would get distorted. Second off, we might put too much stretch on it and it would bubble up later. It's much better if you just walk it into the corner like that and then use the same technique where I'm looking at the top edge and I'm lining it up in the body gap. And we're gonna lock this down. So I may actually come back and trim this a little bit with a knife, but we add just a hair extra in case, so that you get a full wrap all the way around, and in case you don't get it exactly right, you can always trim a little bit away, but if you're short, there's no fixing that. So now, because this is a laminated product, I'm gonna heat up the vinyl when I start pressing the edges down, so that those stay. This is why we didn't spray the headlight, or I mean the side marker with alcohol, is because typically that liquid would pool in this little crack. You think you dried it off completely until you started doing this process, and this would constantly lift on you, and then you would realize it's not a good situation. So let's see, we might be able to tuck all this back and not have to trim it, which would be awesome. But either way, we can make it happen. See, these mini wrap sticks are absolutely great, especially for these side markers on these wide body cars. So it really allows me to press up and around and secure the film in place. All right, so I am going to use my knife and just barely trim away some of this excess material here. Be very careful. And there we go. So that's how you're gonna install a wide body side marker tint kit from Luxe. Start here, roll it right into that, and then work your way down. It's gonna be very easy. And now we have a great custom look on this car.